And we are live. Welcome, everybody, to the inaugural episode of Redman Group on its own channel.
Yay.
Let me introduce our panel today. We've got Carl of Black Label Logic, Donovan Sharp of The Sharp Reality, Ryan Stone of Married Red Pill, and of course, Rollo Tomasi of the Rational Mail blog. Gentlemen, ladies, I bring you the Avengers of the Red Pill. Today's topic. We're going to be talking about thirsty betas, why men become thirsty betas, and every bit of conversation tied into that. If you could kindly smash that like button just to let YouTube know that this broadcast is of use to you. And of course, if you're watching this on a recording because you missed the live broadcast, it's because you haven't subscribed to the new channel. So make sure if you're following our panelists on social, that you do subscribe, hit the notification bell, and bang the set reminder when there's a event set. We'll be doing a more detailed video on how this channel is going to be run in the future, but today will be a standard broadcast. We'll be talking again about the topic mentioned. So let's hop straight into what's been going on in our updates. Rollo, you look like you're ready to roll on that. What have you been up to these days?
Oh, yeah. Geez. As you can tell, it's a lot colder here. We've kind of had a drop in temperature out here. The fires are starting to get put out around me, so it is less smoky. So it's kind of put me in a better mood, I'll say. I went on with Elliot Hulse yesterday, and we went for about an hour and a half. And talked about some really great stuff. I have a new opinion of Elliot. I think he's a really great guy. I think he's at least sincere, put it that way. Having talked with him and just sort of getting to know him more as a guy, I don't know. He really impresses me more now. I know we've had him on the show before, and I was kind of like, well, it's kind of standoffish, only because he reminds me of one of these success porn guys who it's just all about, positivity and motivation and all. And it is, but the guy is genuinely interested in the state of guys and, men's issues and men in general. And I honestly got a good feeling from him, like he really wants to help, which is more than I can say for a lot of other guys who are sort of in that success porn niche right now. I will just go and throw this out there because I think, Anthony's not on today, but we're down to, I think, the last 20 tickets for the 21 convention. We are going to be adding on a special section, I guess, for the Redman Group that's just dedicated for this channel and for this group of guys, and for the the fan base who is going to also be at the convention in Orlando. I'm not going to release the details on that because I know Anthony wants to do that personally, but I will say that it's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to do a live show and of this group at the 21 convention, so keep your eyes peeled for that. I know we just also added Texas Dom to the list of speakers, so now we are up to 22 speakers. And if you haven't had a chance to look at those guys, just go to the 21. I'll put the link in here. The 21 convention website, and just check out who's going to be there. I mean, we've got AJ Cortez, we've got Ed Lattimore. Who else we got? We got Sean Smith. We got myself, of course, and Donovan's going to be there. Ryan's going to be there. Just if you are on the fence, now is the time to commit to this, because I think that the price goes up to like $17.99 or something like that in September. It goes up to
full price at the end of this month.
Yeah, so that's something I've actually. I think what's really exciting right now in my off duty time is actually working with you guys, you and Anthony, and really turning this channel into something other than just like, hey, you guys, let's get together and talk. I mean, this is actually something that has snowballed into something that I never thought it was going to be, and so I'm really kind of excited about that because it's sort of my new project and my new kind of thing to do. And beyond that, I'm still working on book 4. A lot of weird stuff has happened as far as some of the chapters that I'm working on here. I'm having a lot of guys help me out. I'll just go throw this out there again. If you want to contribute to the Red Pill and religion, and it doesn't matter what religion you are, please feel free to either direct mail me or hit me up in my email and say, hey, I'd like to contribute, or I think if you want to tell me about how the red pill affects your religion from where you're at, please feel free to email me and let me know about that. So
cool.
That's me.
Ryan, what's been shaking in your world, brother?
Well, Carl and I have been doing a little back and forth. I realized that my mic has been sounding tinny for the last 20 episodes, so I'm doing some equipment upgrading here to be a little bit of a better presence for the Red Man group. Beyond that, just finishing off the 21Con convention speech for Anthony and Rollo. It's kind of nice to hear these guys, so I make sure I'm not stepping over everybody with the topics. And then beyond that, just keep plugging along. The one nice thing about the Married Red Pill is they don't have dreams of being a 1 million subscriber thing that's like the Donald. They just plug along, get their own lives done, kind of everybody has their single mental point of origin. So that's for me on this side.
Cool. Donovan, what's been shaking with you, man?
Yeah, I had a really good week out here at TSR Primetime. We talked about a lot of subjects. Yesterday or Thursday, we talked about how to stay out of the friend zone. And a lot of guys, it's funny, I get emails all the time. I'm sure you guys too. And one of the number one questions is, Donovan, how do I get out of the friend zone? There's no getting out of the friend zone. Once you're in the friend zone, there's no way out. So I talked extensively about how to stay out of the friend zone. Did a little racial talk. Are white women who date black men, are they off limits? I had an honest discussion about that. We talked about, we discussed, does your girlfriend have hoe tendencies? And a lot of guys might think that and hoe tendencies are similar to what we call slut tells here in the sphere. But hoe tendencies, as far as I'm concerned, are the attention-seeking, dick-seeking tendencies that girls retain even when they're in a relationship. So, for example, if you are in a relationship with a girl and her Facebook page says it doesn't have her relationship status, it says single, or it says ask me, or something to that effect, or she still does girls night out, she's still texting with her ex, things of that nature. So had a good week. Rollo, I literally got your message this morning. I wish I could have seen that last night, because we definitely could have talked about quite a bit last night. But if you want to do a show on Friday night, I'm definitely in for it. Also did one more episode called Four Common Places Your Woman Will Look for Your Replacement. So did a lot of educational podcasts. Of course, you guys can catch my show on donovansharp.com Monday through Thursday at 7:00 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Carl, what's shaking, brother?
Well, I did the Tinder write-up the other day, and I posted that one. It's getting a lot of attention so far. It's kind of took off. I also got involved in some Twitter drama last night. I mean, to be honest, I don't get Twitter drama. It's not the rap game. Everyone doesn't have to come after Jigga on their first mixtape. The internet is a big place with room for everyone. Like, if you want a better understanding of women and better relationships, go to rationalmail.com. If you want to come home to your wife getting gangbanged by 8 guys who look like Donovan, go to patstedman.com. There's a market for everyone.
Man, Carl dropping bombs this morning. Carl's a G, man.
Nice.
Carl, if you want to post that link to your Tinder experiment, you've got the write-up on that, right?
Yeah, I just posted it. Let me grab
Yeah, why don't you put it in the chat just so people can, read it if they want to get into it.
Yeah, will do.
And I'll give you my updates. I mean, one of the things I'm dealing with right now is beard overgrowth. I'm a week out of my regular schedule of trimming because I've been real busy with vacation and stuff with my kid. But on to the more important stuff. I've been working on a deep post on the things that men do that ruin them as far as LTRs and relationships with women and stuff like that. And I got the list up to 18, and then it ended up being 22, and I was going to finish it, and then it ended up being 25. And I think I'm going to hold off until the end of the month because I'm probably going to see something else in the next week that needs to be added to the list. So this will be a seminal video that I'm going to put out. Aside from that, been having a good end of summer, lots of vacation time with my kid. I'm lucky to share custody because I don't know. I mean, I just needed to do the work at that time when I was getting divorced. So pleased about that, and looking forward to building out the Red Man Group channel itself. I want to say happy birthday to Anthony the Dream Johnson because he's off today. He's celebrating. He's taking the weekend off. So shout out to him. And make sure you grab the last remaining tickets. There's less than 30 left, as Rollo stated. So I want to hand it off to Carl because in his typical pocket protecting, stat collecting fashion, he's got some wicked slides put together. And after that, I wanted to kind of dive down the Betaization by 1,000 concession statement that he's made in the past, because I think that's really important. We're also going to talk about how to unplug a friend marching into the slaughterhouse is a general theme of the next thing we want to hop into. And can men and women be friends? And from pet to plow horse, which is guys that go from, you know, the woman's pet to the married plow horse, and what happens there. So, Carl, why don't you kick it off with your slideshow?
Okay, give me a second. I'll just have to get the screen share started here. I don't want anyone to see my fatstadman.com desktop background.
Yeah, I'll answer that first. I'll answer one of those questions. Can men and women be friends? Yes, they can be fuck friends.
Well, why don't we just hold off on that, because I want everybody to chime in on those.
Well, I was going to say, after our conversation last night, I was thinking about this, and I'm going, you know what? Donovan's really going to sink his teeth into this.
Oh yeah, for sure. For sure. There
It'd
we
be
go.
nice
So,
too to discuss the difference between acquaintances and friends.
okay, so we got slides up, guys. Just mute
There we go.
yourself so Carl can dive through them.
Okay, so the Redman group, why men become thirsty betas. Now, if we start with demographics, there's really the birth rates between men and women are fairly equal. According to the CIA fact book, it's about 51% men, 49% women on a global basis. And thinking this is because men tend to get themselves killed a bit when we're younger. It's a combination of high testosterone and not necessarily a good sense of risk management. If we go into social media use by gender, women dominate all forms of social media, but especially Thirstagram. I mean, there's no wonder that there's a lot of thirst going on there, considering it's almost 50% millennial women who are the most attention-seeking women you can find. When we look at how women rate male attractiveness, we can see that women rate 79.5% of men as below a 5.5, and only 20.5% of men are rated above average. So 5% of men for women are an 8 or above. Now, this is indicative of the female hurdle rate, because I'm thinking that the 5 and below are guys that just do not pass the hurdle rate. Women would never consider sleeping with them. If we look at how men rate women, on the other hand, you see it takes the shape of a bell curve, which I think is the logical way to do it. Because if you look at most human characteristics, they tend to come on a bell curve. You have IQ, dick size, height, weight, etc. It comes at a given bell curve. So you have most people clustering in the middle of the distribution, and then you have massive outliers on both sides. Now, if we look at aspirational dating, we see that when people date, they tend to try and go 25% above what their sexual market value is. Now, this was confirmed by a new University of Michigan study where men send 80% of the first messages and women have a 20% reply rate to a guy who's trying to date what he perceives as 25% out of his league. Now, if we look at how preferences impacts this, women's preferences for men tends to correlate strongly with their age plus 1 or 2 years, minus 1 or 2 years, but it goes up. So a woman will tend to go after men of her own age, whereas for men, the 22-year-old woman is always the preference. It varies a little bit between 20 and 23. For the most part, it doesn't matter how old the guy is, he still wants the 20-year-old girl. Now, the issue with this is women from 16 to 28 will always be in high demand from 80% of men, while men ages 16 to 30 will always be in lowest demand because they haven't built any of their sexual market value yet. So this makes them realize or think that their SMV is lower than it actually is. Now, if we look at how this plays into it, and this is from the reflexivity chapter of Gendernomics, a woman will perceive her SMV as 1 to 2 to 3 points higher than it actually is. So the blue line here is what we would expect a majority of women have as an SMV between 4 and 5, whereas they think they're between 5 and 6. So this doesn't seem like a big deal to begin with. And a lot of this is just driven by social media, dating site responses, etc. We've all seen like the Tinder screenshots of the 3 women who has like 99 likes, etc., and a bunch of guys calling her beautiful, and so on. we look at male SMV, on the other hand, it's usually perceived as 1 to 2 points below his actual SMV, and this is driven by the perceived abundance of men. From both sexes' perspective, men always view women as being pursued by men, and women tend to always view themselves as the target of male affections. So if we see the effect of this in this graph here, you can see that in the perceived SMV scale, the average guy is between 3 and 4, and the average woman is between 5 and 6. That's a 2 to 3 point SMV gap for the majority of men to the majority of women. And women perceive the SMV like this, and men do too. So this results in that a lot of women cannot find a guy who they think is hot enough to date them. And most guys will tend to undervalue themselves, so they chase after the bottom 25% of women. Let's see. A little quicker. Some other University of Michigan study findings. Female desirability peaks at 18 and drops off steadily until 16. Male desirability peaks at 50 and then starts dropping off. So congratulations, Rich. You have a couple of good years left. Now, Asian women and white men are rated as the most desirable across the board. Now, the conclusions I've come to is that social media and cultural factors drive women to overvalue themselves and men to undervalue men, and men do the same thing. They overvalue women and they undervalue themselves. The constant perceptions of female scarcity on social media drives a scarcity mindset in the men. The demographics of dating sites and real-world dating market compound this misvaluation by making, if a guy goes out to a bar, for instance, and he sees that there are 80 thirsty guys and 20 women there, he's going to think, oh, there are no women out here. Now, this creates a perceived supply-demand imbalance where men perceive the supply of women as much lower than demand, and women perceive the supply of men as much higher than demand. And here is the end result of that. The bottom 80% of men are chasing after the bottom 22% of women, and the top 78% of women are chasing after the top 20% of men. So if you take a population of 100 people of each sex, then you have 78 women chasing after 20 of the guys, and then you have 80 guys chasing 22 of the women. So you can kind of understand how even someone who is a 2 will feel like she's a 10 based on the fact that she's getting constant attention from all these men. And that is the conclusion of the presentation.
Well,
Dude,
that's
this is why you got who's running around here like they're fucking tens. Bravo, Carl.
yeah.
Well,
This
you
is why
know,
we have Carl with us.
I was going to say this should put to rest any of this. I need a peer-reviewed, scientific study for all of this shit that you guys are talking about in the red pill, and all of this shit about Pareto principle and all this other stuff that people want to disagree with all the time. They love to be very litigious when it comes to this kind of data, and here it is in black and white, and it's pretty much confirming what we've been talking about for forever.
Dude, it doesn't have to be in black and white. Dude, take one stroll on Instagram or Twitter or Facebook, and you got fat bitches out here in bikinis getting 20,000 likes. Like, what is that? Like,
they've got that new post. I think Anthony found it or shared it, where there was this fat, scarred stretch mark women are being celebrated now in bathing suits. But I mean, like, we've all known this for a while as men in our own respective either video creation or blog writing or private communities. It's not new to us. It's just the stats are clear as day. The perception that men have versus the reality of their opportunities are far different, and the opposite is true for women too, right?
Well, I think this kind of drives the friend-zone thing too, because what happens is a lot of these women think there are 10,000 guys out there just dying to be with them, and they're not sure that the one they're with currently is the best one. So they're trying to kind of build the rogues gallery of war biters that are just sitting around there so they can pick and choose them on, okay, right now this guy seems higher value. This guy seems higher value. It's like playing Vegas odds by buying every single number on the roulette table.
I want to move on to the next talking point that I made a note of last night. Betaization by 1,000 concessions. You've mentioned this before in a Twitter post. Can you explain what that means? Because that's kind of the theme of today's video.
Well, what I meant by that is just that most guys tend to not start off beta. Like if you look at how young young boys are, they're kind of pretty alpha if you look at them when they're like 3, 4, 5 years old.
Right.
Then over time, this is kind of beaten out of them with the school system. They get medicated, etc. But what I meant specifically with betaization by 1,000 concessions is a guy who's alpha and he gets into a relationship. And then he starts making little tiny concessions to kind of get some peace. So if his woman creates a lot of drama, he'll kind of agree to something for just to have some peace. And then
We're all just keep this.
Yeah, it's like everyone does it, but it's a frog being boiled slowly. And slowly you go from being, it starts off with, hey, why don't you stay home with me and watch a movie instead of going to the gym? So you skip the gym that day. And, you know, why don't we get some extra food instead of doing something active? And then suddenly you're sitting there, you're fat, and your woman despises you, and she's fat, so you don't want to fuck her. And, you know, the whole thing just... women are inherently self-destructive, so they will take a guy who's alpha, turn him beta, and then they'll kick him out because they resent him for having let them change him.
Yeah,
James
that's
Franco.
the pet to plow horse notion that
Well, that's
earlier we
just
wanted to jump onto.
I was going to say real quick here is that is sort of the ugly side or the ugly extension of the Beauty and the Beast theme, which is women go for that guy who's that really Superman, Tarzan kind of alpha guy. And that, I mean, that's really the formula for most romance novels is they find the guy who's just this untamable alpha, and through whatever magical means, she's the only one who can tame that alpha. And he's still this, you know, uncontrollable barbarian wild man, but he is tamed by her feminine spirit or whatever. I mean, Peterson talks about this every once in a while too, but it's actually a pretty common common formulaic story. But what happens is what Carl's saying is, especially in this day and age where we have everything is over exaggerated either by social media or, you know, globalization in general, that ends up becoming, there's an uglier side of that too. So once Superman has been sort of, you know, subdued into being Clark Kent, where does he go from there? He goes even worse. He goes even, you know, he gets fat, he gets lazy, she gets fat, and then that's the uglier side of the extreme of that. And unless a guy can sort of step in and break up that that continuity and insist on keeping his own identity, that's where you're going to end up headed. So that might be something we want to talk about later on here.
Yeah, well,
Okay.
it's so common in Married Red Pill. I mean, every guy's first post is always, I used to be alpha, slowly became beta. James Franco talks about it in his book, Practical Female Psychology. It's so old. I mean, like you were saying with Jordan Peterson, they've been talking about it since biblical times.
So I want to pose this question to the entire panel, which comes up often. You know, I've done a ton of consults and coaching calls with people. I did one the other day. A guy was calling me because one of his close friend, was getting married to a woman, and he saw him basically marching into the slaughterhouse. And the common question is, well, how do you unplug somebody that's basically heading for destruction? You know, just walking into a train wreck. So I want to pass it off to the panel. I'll throw it off to you, Donovan, first, because I know you've probably got some good thoughts on this. So what do you do in a scenario like that when it comes to, you see your beta-tized friend marching into the slaughterhouse? What do you do?
Yeah, well, I'll start with the first thing you shouldn't do. And I think that proactively and literally telling your buddies about the red pill, to me, is akin to witnessing when you're, you know, a born again Christian. Here, let me sit down. If you were to die today, do you know where you would go? Would you go to heaven or hell? No. You don't do that anymore. And you can't sit down and say, hey, check this out. I found this, you know, red man group and the red pill and this and that and the other. Let me sit down and tell you what the red pill is all about. You can't do that either. I think you have to be very passive when you're trying to sort of convert your friends. the first thing you're going to have to resolve in your mind is that your friend is going to march into that slaughterhouse. What your goal is to try to mitigate that collateral damage, at least, because here's the thing. We as men, we're stubborn. We are stubborn sons of bitches. We can hear and read all kinds of stuff, but unless we experience it for ourselves, unless we burn our hands on the stove, we're not really going to believe that we're not really going to believe that the proverbial stove is hot. So the first thing you should do if you're trying to maybe, mitigate some of that collateral damage is, in passing, tell them, hey, you know what? I actually, saw this interesting video, the Red Man group. Just send him a link. I thought it was interesting. Tell me what you think. Maybe he watches it. Maybe he doesn't. Then maybe a few days later, pass him a copy of The Rational. Like, hey, listen, man, I bought this book. I read it. I thought it was actually quite interesting. Makes a few good points. Tell me what you think. I think the next way and the best way to do it is to be a good example. If you're a guy who lifts weights, if you eat right, if you take good care of yourself, if you're good with women, if you're living that red pill life, men and women alike are going to notice. And if your friends see that you're kicking life's ass, at some point, see, girls hate each other, right? If they see a girl losing weight, oh my God, you're going to lose too much weight. You're going to look like a skinny twig. No, that's code for you're going to get skinnier than me, which means you're going to get more male attention and more dick than I will. So please quit losing weight. Or when a girl gets a haircut short, oh, that looks so cute. The translation there is, okay, now there's less competition because I still have long hair. Men were not the same way. When we see that a guy is dominating life in some sort of way, if we see a guy is making gains in the weight room, if he's really, really good with women, if he buys a new car, if all of a sudden his life starts going right, your friends, your family members are going to take notice. And eventually they're going to ask you, like, look, Donovan, like I noticed X, Y, and Z. I noticed you're better with the ladies. I noticed you're getting fit. What's the secret? That is your in to sort of say, well, actually, there really is no secret. I discovered this Red Man group and I read this guy's website and went to donovansharp.com. Visited Rollo Tomasi. There's this pocket protector guy who's got tape between his glasses, who knows all the statistics on why, twos act like tens and things of that nature. And then you can go from there. But the one thing you cannot do, you cannot force anyone to take the red pill. I say this all the time. The men who digest the red pill are the men who seek it out. That's the way it is. But if you want to say, you're not going to save your friend from the slaughterhouse. Just understand that he is going to walk in. The only thing you can do as a red pill aware male is to try to mitigate that collateral damage, and hopefully he makes it out without having a kid or getting an STD or getting divorced, right?
Yeah, and before I pass it off to Rollo, that just reminds me of that old saying, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear, right?
There you go. That's it. That's right.
Yeah. Well, I was just going to say is that I get this a lot. And I've got kind of I hate to seem like I'm blowing this off, but I've got a saying that says, unplugging guys from the matrix is dirty work. I've likened it to triage. You save the ones you can, and you read last rites to the dying and hope for the best, and I know that sounds kind of callous sometimes, especially if it's somebody that you really care for, because I have a lot of guys who say, hey, my brother is about to march into the slaughterhouse, or hey, I've got my best friend or God forbid, my son is about to enter into a marriage with a woman that is just the worst thing I could possibly imagine for him. He really needs your book. Or I'll get guys who'll say, hey, Rollo, when's the best time do you think I should hand off your book to my teenage son? And I'm like, whoa, first of all, does your son even read? There's a lot of factors that go. Well, it's true, because this, like, when you're a teenager, you don't want, especially from your dad, it's like you don't want to do shit for your dad. But the thing is that there's an art to it, and I think it's sort of contextualized by who you're trying to unplug and who you're trying to save. I like Donovan's comparison to being sort of this witnessing, or this religious witnessing, or this religious like intervention kind of thing. I do have 5 minutes to talk about the red pill. Yeah, and that's funny you should mention that, because that's exactly what I told Rich when we were coming up with topics last night. I said, it's not like you can have some sort of, you knock on the door and, for like you're a Jehovah's Witness or something, and you're trying to help these guys out. And I said it would be really nice if you could do that, because a lot of guys want the cheat codes for a lot of different things. They want the cheat codes to get chicks, and they also want the cheat codes to help their friends unplug. And it would be very great if Rollo Tomasi could write this, religious tract, that says, here, read this and you will become red pill and you will, will solve all your problems. And it just simply doesn't work like that, because there is a lot of there's a lot of investment in changing your life. I mean, surprise, surprise. You need to actually be involved in your own, you have to want to change, first of all. And most of these guys don't realize that they need to change. They don't realize that, what they're heading into. And so you can say, hey, wait, whoa, the edge of the cliff is over here and you're going to go off that cliff. Most of these guys are going to do that anyway. So I think the first part is just to accept that those guys are going to do that. Second of all is, I would say that if you have a chance to sort of unplug your friends, it's going to be when that guy is at his most vulnerable. And I hate to say that.
Listen, this is how religion does it too. Right?
Yeah, that's why I said that. I hate to say that, because that's where religion gets a lot of people, and I don't want to liken the red pill to religion, because a lot of people want to say, "Oh, this is just a big cult." No, it's not. If you just watch Carl's, data heavy, slideshow, you can see that this is not based on some, imaginary, motivational bullshit. I mean, this is based on, hard facts, and so I'm always trying to avoid this, sort of religious connotations of the red pill, because I'll always try to be as objective as I can. But that being said, it is very true that you have to wait till your guys are, the guy is sort of hitting rock bottom. So if you see a guy, or maybe it's your son, or maybe it's, your brother, and he's going to marry this woman that you as a red pill guy can see is probably the worst thing for him. If he's not at that low point, you're not going to be able to get through to him, because he's thinking that his ship has come in. And especially if he's a blue pill beta and he's been waiting his entire life for, this particular girl, his dream girl to come true. You're not going to tell him anything. I remember we've talked about this on the Dangerous Women episode before. It's like, you couldn't tell me shit when I was with my BPD. You could not tell me a damn thing. And that's a frustrating thing, is because I'll try to talk to people and try to unplug them, and I'll see me in that. I'll see, oh my God, that was exactly what I did. And oh shit, he's headed for disaster. And I think what you kind of get the double whammy there, because first of all, you have to wait until that guy hits rock bottom, and you have to wait till he's kind of is getting zeroed out, but not quite so zeroed out that he's ready to put a noose around his neck and hang himself. You have to wait for those moments. And one of the things that I tell guys is, with your red pill lens, point out certain things that you see, whether it's culturally or in his own relationship, or in if it's say it's your brother, in your parents' relationships. Dad has always been a blue pill chump, and let me show you the instances why. And you sort of make them, we raise awareness to red pill ideas, and and really the truth about intersexual dynamics for that guy. And you say, look, remember that song about such and such? Those were some really blue pill lyrics. Let me tell you why. And you just wait for your moments, is what I tell guys. And then be ready for that and have patience, because most guys simply don't have the patience. That's why they want that tract. They want to just be able to give them my book and say, here, read this, and your eyes will be open and everything will be good. Well, if that guy's not in a position, or is not at a place in his life where he's ready to read that, it's going to stay on a shelf. He's never going to do anything with it. He's just going to say, oh, these guys are just crackpots, something you found on the internet. But if you wait for your moments, and you say, okay, the reason your wife is doing this, the reason your girlfriend did this, is because she's hypergamous. She's, and you can point out these very common red pill incidents, and you show them that, you build that up over time. And then once they get to a point where they're in trauma or they're in crisis, and you go, look, if you had to listen to me back in them, and you don't have to say, hey, I told you so, but if you say, look, all the stuff that I've been telling you all this time is now the chickens are coming home to roost. Okay. And so now that you're at a low point, do you not see what I've been trying to tell you? And it's at that point when guys will start to go, okay, maybe there's something to this, and they start to wake up. And unfortunately, that's you're trying to keep the noose off of their neck, but you still want to make it. Again, it can't be some religious conversion. You don't want to make it some sort of you're join my cult. Right. You don't want it to sound like that. Exactly. And so wait for your moments, and then understand that you've got to be patient, And then also understand that when that guy finally decides to unplug, he's going to be pretty traumatized. So just those are things to keep in mind. And that is a test of your dedication to your friendship or your family or your brother or whatever else. So keep that in mind when you're doing that.
Yeah, good point. Ryan, you're up, brother.
Yeah, I'm going to take a bit of a different angle on this one. I found in the Married Red Pill, when guys are asking this question, it's never the senior guys. It's always the guy who's maybe 6 months in, has some initial victories under his belt, but he's not nearly where he wants to be, and he's definitely not in that top 20% of guys. So I find a lot of this isn't so much wanting to help your friends, it's to want to bolster your confidence based on your insecurity. So I would suggest to somebody who wants to unplug somebody, the first thing you need to do is make sure your shit's in order. And the rule of thumb I have is, your shit's in order when you don't ask how you red pill your friends. So it's kind of counterproductive. I mean, we have this guy right now, we're using Steve now as our meme for a guy who just kicks the can down the road. He was red pill, he was gung-ho, he decided to leave his wife, and we all suggested, get your shit in order first, because otherwise you're just kicking the can down the road and have it on the next girl. And sure enough, he's back a year later. He's got a 4-month girl who just lost her son, and he's sitting here asking how he can treat his first officer, 4-month first officer. Yeah. And these are the kind of guys that want to unplug their friends. I'm like, dude, don't do us any favors. Jesus. And then I've always said, it's going to be my Carl moment here, where I say, ethos is better than pathos, which is better than logos. So what that means is your status is more important as a persuasive tool than you being able to give somebody emotions, which is more important than logic. And that's where most guys think they're going to persuade somebody. They just puke it all out. Have you heard about this thing? Here's this podcast, read this book. And they give a guy these homework assignments. And you're like, here, come back in a year and you're going to love it. And the guy's going to tell you to go, fuck. He's going to go tell you to pound sand, and he should. It's the worst type of persuasion ever. And if you want to talk somebody red pill, why not just be red pill? And it's more than just what Donovan was saying, or just be a top tier guy so they want to emulate it. Red pill is guys swapping notes. It's Carl handing us some shots there of all this research he's doing. So what I do, for example, with my friends, and he's higher value than me, he's a +1 on the scale, is we just swap stories. I had a fight with my girl last night. Oh, what did you do? And what did I do? So we're not red pilling each other. We're just being red pill. It's the best way to describe it. It's like scientism versus science. You guys know that thing?
Yeah, I've heard of
that.
it.
Where somebody won't believe you unless you have a peer-reviewed cited source, but they have no idea how to read a research paper, as opposed to just tinkering away. And that's my 2 cents on it anyway.
I mean, that's paralysis by analysis. They know the truth, but they want something that they think is going to push them over the edge. What more do you need? You don't need some sort of peer-reviewed bullshit.
Yeah.
All right, Carl, throw it at him. Give him your logic bombs.
Well,
Black label.
My thing is just, I tend to say that a spoonful of sugar makes the medicine go down, but the red pill, you need a kick in the balls. Because I think Rolla's right. You need some form of trauma. Their girl leaves them, or their girl cheats on them, or they see their girl on Pornhub doing a gangbang with 8 dudes or something like that. They need some form of trauma to trigger them. And if I like to give one tip, start working out with the guy, bring him to the gym and lift with him.
Okay.
You can begin there. Don't start trying to, okay, here's the Rational Male books. You need to read all of this. And here's this guy, Donovan Sharp. Support him on Patreon and listen to all his podcasts. It's going to take an hour a day. And you don't want to do that, because most guys will be like, nah, not going to do that. But if you make some gains in the gym and you're like, well, you want to start coming with me to the gym, I notice you're starting to get a little soft there. And if you get him to go with you, you can have some conversations with him while you're there, and you don't have to be specifically red pill. Oh, I read this book. Here, have a look at it. See if you find it useful. And over time, he'll start to come around, because I think weightlifting is one of those things that just changes you mentally as well as physically.
Yeah, very frank conversations.
Yeah, men do, women talk. So
right.
Yeah, and I think that's another thing. I've always talked about this when I'm talking about communication styles between men and women. Men have to have a shared activity that they're doing. So, like the best talks you're ever going to have with your dad or your brother or whatever, or your friends, is when you actually are going to do something. You have a project between the two of you, and during that project is when you're making your best communications. That's just simply how men are. It's just the way we're wired. And then furthermore, just back on that other top, I'm glad Ryan talked about the emotional connection there, because I think it was Illimitable Man had this really great post about how these guys sort of will resist any kind of information that contradicts their ego investments, because they want to see, I need to have 12 different peer-reviewed studies before I'm going to accept that as truth, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, no, it's bullshit, because you didn't come to your beliefs based on, peer-reviewed studies where you're at right now. And it, getting somebody to accept something that they're already resistant to, I think that, Ryan's absolutely right. There's an emotional connection there, and it's not about pure logic, and it's not about, that's why I said when a guy gets to that low point, that traumatic point, not only are you going to be, trying to help the guy out from a red pill perspective, but you're also going to be dealing with his emotions, because he's going to be pissed off. Like Ryan says, if he comes home and he finds his wife banging his best friend, that's going to be emotional context as opposed to a rational context.
On the news.
All right. I just want to add to that before we move on to the next point.
About the peer-reviewed studies, because what a peer-reviewed study is, it's a research study that's been done, and then it's been published in an academic journal or something similar, and other people who are experts in that field have looked through the study. Now, it doesn't mean that they've replicated the findings. It doesn't mean that they necessarily agree with your results. It just means that they don't think you made any major mistakes or fuck-ups when you did the study. So that's why you find with psychology, for instance, there are a lot of studies that are published every year, and a lot of them are peer-reviewed, but less than 40% of them are replicating. That means that if you try to replicate the results, less than 40% of the time you're able to do that. So just because something is a peer-reviewed study doesn't mean that the data is in there are facts. It just means that this is what they arrived at in that study. You have to actually be able to read the study and put it in context to see if it's valid.
So I want to add to that and kind of frame it from this perspective, because I just work with this entrepreneurial ADD sort of mind, and I've known for a while that painkillers sell better than vitamins, simply because, well, that's the thing about the red pill. The red pill is a painkiller. It is not a vitamin, and people are usually motivated to do something about their pain far more than they are about preventing it. So that's really what the red pill is and what it boils down to. That's why pharmaceutical companies make way more money than nutraceutical companies. Pharmaceutical, of course, is selling you, boner pills, whereas the, nutraceuticals are saying, hey, take this testosterone booster, sort of thing. It's, it's just a reality of life. That's how people operate. That's how we're hardwired. So one of the things that I'd recommend that guys do if you're trying to unplug a friend is, sit them down during a experience, like, if you're sitting in the sauna after a workout, and say, hey, look, understand this is going down with you and so, and just wanted to share this experience in the past because I see a lot of parallels and similarities, and that seems to go down real well with guys. But again, if they're not ready for the medicine, they're not going to take it. Like I said, when the student's ready, the teacher will appear. I want to move along though, because we're going to start taking calls in about 20 minutes or so, and the next point that I had to talk about was, can men and women be friends? Because a lot of guys end up in the, let's just be friends category, LJBF sort of thing. So I want to pass that across the panel. Let's start with Rollo on that one.
Okay. I've got several different posts on this. This is actually one of the most popular topics, I think, in the red pill, because it's so controversial. You have to understand that when a guy or a woman says, oh yeah, of course men and women can be friends in a platonic sense, they are already beginning from a faulty premise. And what I mean by that is, like, most people that believe in what's called blank slate equalism. They think that men and women are exactly the same. They think that with the exception of just the plumbing, they think that the thinking or the potential, human potential, is always the same, and it's bullshit. Okay, I mean, we are more different than we are alike, and I know that's not popular to say, but more and more we're finding out that men are wired differently. We have different evolved mental firmware than women do. Women are more about communications. Men are more about information. Men are more about things. Women are more about people. So with that in mind, there is always this idea that these guys want to say, oh, I can be friends, but you have to understand that both sexes are coming or approaching friendship from the perspective of how they relate with their same-sex friends. So for men and men to be friends is one paradigm. For women and women to be friends is another paradigm. And for men and women to be friends is the third paradigm right there. And so when a guy decides that he's going to be friends with a woman, it's usually because that guy couldn't cross that abyss. He couldn't jump ladders. If anybody's familiar with ladder theory, what it is that there's this platonic friend ladder, and then there's this romantic, intimate, partner man or ladder, and guys try to jump from one ladder to the other. And whenever I hear guys telling me about something like this, they're usually following something that they're what I call the sniper mentality. They've been waiting and waiting and waiting for their moment to get in there and to be friends with that girl, because they believe in this bullshit, blue pill lie that you got to be friends with her before you can be intimate with her. Right. And this is old school stuff. I mean, I've been talking about this for like probably 15, 20 years now. And a part of blue pill game is to believe that you can be friends with a woman before you can be intimate with that woman, and that you have to build this rapport. She's got to be comfortable with you. And then, so you got this guy who's investing all of himself and trying to prove that he'd be the perfect boyfriend if you just see that. And so the guy tries to make that jump, and he tries to make his approach, and he finally takes his one shot. I call this a sniper mentality. The guy's just decided that, okay, here's the perfect moment. Hey, I want to express my love for you. And by that time, she only sees him as this platonic kind of comforting, like a brother, or he's become so familiar to her that she sees him literally as family, and she doesn't see him as a lover. And so she says, no, sorry, I see you more as a friend. Can we just be friends? And that's the classic let's just be friends line. And so at that point, that guy, retreats back to where he was before, and then figures out that, okay, I wasn't friendly enough. I didn't put myself out there enough. And so in being and accepting that let's just be friends, that treaty, I guess, because that's what it ends up being, is this treaty between a man and a woman, that basically, I still want your attention, but I don't want to fuck you. I don't want to be intimate with you, but I still want your attention. I still want to keep you as a beta orbiter. I still like being able to talk to you when I'm bitching and complaining about the alphas that I'm fucking right now, but I want to keep you in this. And so that's why she will say, I want to be friends. And so anytime a guy accepts that, that's when he goes sort of into the friend zone. And I think that, or, sometimes it doesn't necessarily have to come after a let's just be friends, but most commonly it's after a let's just be friends. And so the guy then goes back into rebuilding. Okay, if I can just prove myself here, if I can qualify myself here. And these guys are following a beta game, but that beta game is also built on what's called strategic pluralism. And what that means is that guys who are lesser or lower on sexual market value, like Carl was just saying, it's at least 80% of guys, if they're lower on that SMV scale, or they believe that they're lower on that SMV scale, then it behooves them to put themselves more into one woman as opposed to spreading themselves out, because they don't believe that they can do that. They don't think, first of all, they don't think it's right, whatever their moral convictions happen to be. But those moral convictions come as a result of this subconscious knowledge that the guy's SMV is much lower than, it's lower because he thinks it is. And so he realizes that he's got to put himself more into that one woman. And so what does he do? He retreats back to where he was before and goes at it that much more, because guys always want to try to figure out shit. We're deductive problem solvers. We always want to say, okay, this is a problem and I got to solve it, and I got to figure out how I'm going to get in there. And so they end up becoming the creepy friend, and they end up becoming the more than just a friend. So now the other side of this is like when women see their friends, when they see a male friend, a male platonic friend, they are coming into that friendship sort of disingenuously. And the reason I say that is because women always base their friendships, what they believe is friendship, on the only frame of reference that they have, and that's their girlfriends. And so when a guy says, hey, okay, we can be friends, she is looking at her friendship between herself and that guy, not as, okay, this is a guy, so I have to relate to him differently. It's, this guy is a girlfriend. And so everything that guy does as a friend ends up in the same paradigm or the same frame of reference as she would when she treats her girlfriends. That's why I always say this, is that women have boyfriends and girlfriends. And if you're not fucking her, you are her girlfriend. Right. And guys always give me, or people always give me shit about that. And I say, look, it's very, very true. Because when you are friends with that woman, the only frame of reference that she has for friendship is her same sex friends. And so when she sees that in you, she turns you into that girlfriend. And so when you start relating to her as a friend, you will never relate to her as an intimate. You will never relate to her as the guy that she wants to fuck, unless you completely cut yourself off, go away for 3 or 4 years, and then come back and she doesn't even know who you are. Then maybe you can start over again. But usually that's not even worth doing, because by then you're someone else, and you'll realize that you were fucking things up, and you have better options for yourself anyways. But the fact of the matter is that women view friendship from a same-sex paradigm, whereas guys do the same thing. We see friendship from male versus male, and then we are more accommodating of our female friends. So I was telling Rich this last night, is that guys will put up with shit with a female friend that they would never put up with from a male friend. The stuff that you will compromise yourself for, and the stuff that you will, like a woman is late for, hey, we're going to go to a movie, whatever. Woman's late, you missed the movie or whatever. You're going to go, it's okay, let's go get coffee or something like that. If your buddy did something like that, you missed an appointment, you would get in a fist fight with this guy.
Yeah, dude.
And that's the kind of compromise that you make. So when I say, men and women cannot be friends, I mean that from the perspective that we approach friendship from different frames of reference. And so when you become that friend to her, you're just another girlfriend. She's treating you, and she's interacting with you, and she's in that friend frame of reference as if you are one of her girlfriends. And just finally here, last night, Rich, you said, well, what about gay friends? Even more so, when a woman has a gay male friend, she sees that guy even more so as a girlfriend, because now he is literally relating to her as another girl. And it's like, they go into that sort of frame of reference, paradigm where they're relating to each other as if it's another girl. So those are some things to think about with friendship.
All right, let's toss it off to Ryan. Can men and women be friends?
Yeah, Rich, perfect to segue there off of Rolo's thing. First off, I wanted to ask, are we talking friends or are we talking acquaintances? The reason I ask is because an acquaintance offers you a pizza so you can help her move. Yeah, a friend helps you move. An acquaintance will grab appies with you after work and some drinks. A friend grabs drinks and heads down to your place when you've just been dumped by your girl of 10 years. An acquaintance likes your Facebook posts. A friend is in the photos you don't dare post on Facebook. So to answer your question, Rich, can women and men be friends? Ask yourself, and this is for the audience, ask yourself, do you have a friend or an acquaintance? And if you're not sure, here's a quick little check. 1, if she offered to fuck you, would you turn her down? If you asked her for something that inconveniences her to help you for no reward, would she do it? And if you're down on your luck, does she help you dust yourself off and pick yourself up? Or do you kind of lose touch? If you can't honestly answer all 3, then you're not a friend. So then the real question you're asking is not can and women and men be friends? It's why do you need to have this person in life that you want to fuck, you can't rely on them when you need to, and you always have an expectation of reciprocation. And I'm going to bet dollars to donuts we're talking about some kind of validation. Either it's a minor replacement of mommy, or it's I can't fuck anybody, so this is my only shot, Like look inside your heart. Like you need Jesus. That's my thought anyway.
All right, let's toss it off to Carl. Go ahead.
Well, I just don't think it's a good plan because someone always wants to fuck someone on that continuum. And I think Ryan summed it up brilliantly that if you can't rely on them and you're just edging to fuck them, why are you keeping them around? Most guys will accept the friendship offer because they're planning on going in there like a fucking Trojan horse. So they're just going to be there one day when that girl happens to want some dick, and they're going to be the only guy around, so she'll sleep with them then. And most of the time, they just end up wasting a colossal amount of time and energy trying to maneuver her into a position for sex that they're never going to get. So I would say if you are friends, unless you grew up together, like 5 years old, living next door to each other, that becomes more of a sibling thing, but no, not with adults.
All right, let's toss it off to Donovan.
Yeah. No, listen, men and women can be friends, but when there's a male-female platonic relationship, the only person that benefits is the female. Listen, men become friends with women because they want to fuck them, and women know this. And when women get called out, you know, Robbie wants to fuck you. No, he doesn't. Well, of course you know. Here's the thing, man. How can I put this? I think Ryan may have said this. When you do friend things, like you know, you talk to her about certain things, when you act like a girlfriend, you're going to, this is Rollo, you get treated like a girlfriend. And one quick way you can tell if you are in the friend zone is that she has no issue being naked in front of you. And I'll tell you a quick story and then we'll move on to the next one. I remember one chick that I set up a date with a few years back. I saw her at a gas station, chatted her up, got her number, blah, 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 blah. So to me, the sexual tension was palpable. I tried to fuck her, couldn't do it, tried to get invited in. Well, when she got out of my car, she leaned over into the window and asked if we could meet up tomorrow night. And I said, we'll see. She smiled and she went into her apartment. But something she did grabbed my attention. When she leaned over, she covered her cleavage so I wouldn't see down her blouse. The reason she did that is because I'm a threat to fuck her, right? Mm-hmm. So when you're in the friend zone, a woman doesn't see you as a threat to fuck her. So if you have a girlfriend and you know she has someone friend zone, dude, listen, I'm going to go spend the night at Robbie's house. Fine, go ahead. Listen, I'm the asshole that you're complaining to him about. We know you're not going to fuck that guy. So again, men and women can be friends, but if you're a man, I have three quick rules. The only way that I'm friends with a woman is if I want to fuck her, I am fucking her, or if I have fucked her and I'm trying to set up other girls to fuck. That's it.
All right, and before we hop into the next question, I mean, you guys have already covered most of it, but I just want to state this. Look, if you want to bang, but you aren't friends, you're just a thirsty beta. The next topic I want to hit on before we start taking calls, and if somebody can post the number in the chat just so people have it so they can start queuing up. We've kind of talked about this last night, Roll and I, anyway, and I think that most of the panel will agree on it, but men kind of go through the cycle of the plate spinning alpha to the pet, and they usually turn to the pet when she kind of brings them over and it's like, look what I caught, sort of thing, to like a family event or Thanksgiving or something like that. And then when they get married, he turns into the plow horse, which ends up being the guy that she resents, she doesn't want to be with, she's yelling at him because he's incompetent, sort of thing. So I'd like you guys to kind of like touch on that. Rollo, you can go first. The pet to plow horse, sort of notion, because that really ties into thirsty betahood.
Yeah, I liked what Donovan had to say there about the I don't even really want to call them subconscious tells because they're actually very open and overt most of the time. When like the girl's covering up her tits because she sees you as actually a potential sexual threat at some point. So at least those are some things I think a lot of guys are unaware of, the subcommunications that women send to them. And so that's something I think that guys need to be made more aware of. Because if a woman is, I can remember, gosh, I hate, this is completely embarrassing for me to say this, but when I was younger, when I was like, say 19 or 20, there's a girl that I really, really wanted to get with, and it's almost identical situation to what Donovan was saying. That woman would like show up in underwear and a bra or something, and knowing that I was just the friend. And so she's just like free to go, put on her makeup in front of you and, get herself all tarted up and everything, because you're okay there because she sees you as a friend. She sees you as that female that female frame of reference friend. And so why would she cover up? Why would she be coy with you? Because she just sees you as a girlfriend. If you find yourself in those situations, that should be a pretty big tell for you. But then what happens? Just like Ryan was saying, is she going to be there for you? Is she going to help you move? Is she going, if you say, the stuff that you were going to ask of your same-sex friends, would she be, an equivalent of that? And almost unanimously, it's always no. A woman is just somebody that, that you serve her. Like your presence and the things that you do, like your support is there for her. It's not, it's almost never the other way around. And if it is, it's because a guy does sort of the same thing where he's got like a fat girl that wants to get with him, but he doesn't want. I mean, I've seen this happen, like a girl who's not as attractive and she wants to get with him and he knows it. And he kind of like, keeps her at arm's length. Even that woman is not going to go help that guy move. In fact, that guy's probably not even going to ask that woman to go help him move because he knows what's going on. So when you have an intimate that wants to be with a friend, and it's the guy who is the friend, or the friend, and the woman wants to be the intimate, then that dynamic changes entirely when it's the guy who wants to be the intimate and this woman that wants to be the friend. So what happens is when you get into these situations, you tend to be somebody that's useful to her. You're the guy that she calls up at 2 a.m. and says, "I'm drunk at the club. Can you come and get me? I can't drive." And then she's expecting you to come out there and pick her up and to take her home. The useful idiot, the plow horse. So you've gone now from friend to plow horse, or you become a mule is what I call these guys. You become that mule for that woman. And there's lots of ways that a guy can become that mule. He can do so just like with physical actions. Like some guys, what was it? I just read recently on my Twitter feed, somebody sent me this other Twitter of this guy or this exchange in IM where the guy is literally buying this woman a car because he's a friend of hers. And it's almost like one of those, what do you call it? The sugar daddy kind of things where the guy is happy to give her, I'm happy to do it. Because we're friends and we're part of this new, you know how many guys have been saying that exact same shit where they try to say we're friends and we're above all that. How many, I've been listening to that bullshit since the late 80s. Okay. So this is not new. It's not like, oh, well, we're millennials. And so we do things differently. No, you do exactly the same thing that any other guy has done because he's thirsty as well. And so you end up going from being just, let's be friends to what can I get out of this guy? Can I get him to pay for dinner? Can I get him to come pick me up when I'm drunk? Can I get him to cry with me on the phone when I'm complaining about my alpha boyfriend? You become sort of the pit crew for that woman, right? So it's like whatever she needs new tires, you give her new tires. She needs more gas, you give her more gas. You're the pit crew for her. And so what happens is those guys end up getting wrapped up in that because, like what I was saying before, is they kind of retreat back to that friendship mode and they think, okay, if I just did things better, if I just was a better friend, if I was just show that I'm more supportive, if I just show all these really, really good qualities, she's finally going to see the light. And she never does because you're basically her pit crew. Now, there's one exception to that. The time when she hits her epiphany phase, then she suddenly sees the light. And she says, oh my God, this guy has been the perfect guy for me all this time. I was right there in front of me. I never saw it. And so now that guy who's been what I call a beta in waiting, he's finally hitting pay dirt because he believes that all of that investment, and he finally has some equity, right? What he's not seeing is that she's finally at a point where she can't get with those alpha guys anymore. And she has to get off the cock carousel. Her party years are pretty much over. And she's looking for a long-term long-term security, long-term provisioning. And that guy's always been there and he's always been doing that. Yeah. He's always been the pit crew. And now she needs a pit crew. And so she says, okay, fine. Maybe I'll fuck you. I'll pretend that I really like it, but I really need what you're doing because if I keep doing what I'm doing, I can't get with these guys anymore. And I want to settle down and the competition is too stiff right now. I'm about to hit the wall. Let's get married. Nice guy. Let's get married, friend. And so you have a marriage that is based not on genuine desire, but on her necessitousness for what she needs you for now, because suddenly all the stuff that you've been doing all along is something that she actually has value for now, because she can see, finally she's acknowledging her long-term needs. But this is even more dangerous for the guy who was the mule, who was the plow horse, who was the pit crew, because he believes, because all of that shit where she finally comes around and he thinks his ship has come in and that he's finally hit pay dirt and everything he's doing is finally paid off. And you know what? It's for those kind of guys, it turns them onto a self-righteousness that you won't find in any other guy. There's nothing more self-righteous than a beta who is finally being validated for his being beta.
On that point, let me just add something to that, Rolo, so we can move on to Carl. We touched on this briefly last night with Chris Rock, and he's got a classic statement. The number one reason, fellas, why your woman is pissed off at you is because you were not her first choice.
Woo! Wow.
Carl, fire away, man.
Well, I just think it's Rolo touched on most of it. I mean, women build these rogues galleries of warbitters that they just keep around because they're useful idiots. They're kind of the enablers of her lifestyle. They pick her up at the club. They serve as her +1 if she needs someone who doesn't look like. Well, I'm not going to make that comparison, to bring her to a wedding or to bring her to a corporate event or something. And they're useful as employees, but she would never let them buy equity into the company until she suddenly hits her epiphany phase. And then nobody's there to buy equity in her company anymore. And she's desperate to sell some because she needs that fresh influx of cash to maintain her lifestyle. And then the guy enters the relationship and the honey-do list just goes from being, a legal paper to a legal pad, because what happens is that guy is just there to be an employee. And I just went into a post I'm writing right now about what I call the male epiphany phase for pickup artists. And one of the points I make there is many men, perhaps even one that's exacerbated in red pill men and pickup artists, where by the time they hit their 30s and 40s, they develop a disdain for the previous lifestyle, often adopt religion and seek to transition from playboy to patriarch. They become disillusioned by what they regard as a vapid, hedonistic, self-gratifying lifestyle and start to seek something more. Funnily enough, all this leads to is them growing huge-ass beards and using the word virtue a lot. And that kind of tends to happen with pickup artists, and that's how they go from being plate-spinning alphas to being betas, because they kind of reject everything about their old lifestyle and think they're going to be better, and in their world, being better is very trad-conny. It's very much the guy in the 50s who worked, come home, gets a martini from his wife, goes into the basement and drinks beers. So just death by 1,000 concessions.
Yeah. Donovan.
Yeah, I mean, I think what a lot of people in this sector of the web, I think, especially guys who listen to us, is you underestimate the power of true femininity. And masculinity in and of itself is a very self-sustaining aura, I guess, to use a feminist word. If you're a masculine individual, you don't need anybody or anything. You certainly want to fuck beautiful girls. You want this, you want that, but you don't really need to. But true femininity has a way of sort of peeling back the layers. And if you don't have red pill awareness, then eventually she is going to turn you from the plate spinning alpha into the supplicating beta. And it's funny. It's almost like they give you good tasting poison. Like you're swallowing the poison and you like the taste, and before you know it, you wake up and you're not really the person that you used to be. I think a lot, and I think it's funny. I think I can speak for everyone on the panel here. Yeah, we're all red pill guys and this and that and the other, but deep down inside, we're all waiting to exhale, right? Now, guys like us, we know that you can never exhale with a woman because, like I said, my girlfriend Devin, she's great, but just like Rolo said about his wife, I know she can go feral at any time. So I always have to be on my guard. That's very that for men, that's an incredible cross to bear. And a lot of men think that their ship has come in. Finally, I have reached the pinnacle of alphadom. I can finally let my guard down. No, no, no. The reason you have her in the first place is because you are displaying alpha characteristics, because you are a red pill aware male. Just because she gives you the impression that you can let your guard down doesn't mean that you can't. Like I said, I mean, Devon's great and she treats me well, but I don't think my ship has come in. Her ship has come in. Because if her and I ever do split up, she's going to go back. She's going to go back to the bad habits that she had before she met me. And I'm just going to go back to being me. So, and I saw a comment on my Instagram. Oh my God, Donovan, I can't wait. Like, I'll post pictures of Devon just because I'm bragging. And I try to show guys, hey, if I can do it, then you can do it. And guys are like, man, I hope I can beat a woman like Devon. No, dude. Like, Devon wasn't who she is before she met me. It took me a long time, a lot of patience, a lot of yelling, and a lot of tears to get her to where she is now. And there's still there's still difficulties. There's still a lot of maintenance. But the point is you can never take your foot off the gas, guys, because the minute you think the minute you think you're comfortable with a woman, the minute and women try to civilize you. It's in their psychology. They are trying to civilize you. They're trying to make you. They're trying to get you to settle down. They're trying to, I'm sure there are other words for it. Guys smarter than me can probably speak to this, but if they are successful in their endeavors to civilize you, you will become less attractive to them. And that is the beginning of the end.
Yeah, they end up destroying the very thing that they love so much.
One more thing. Illimitable Man said this the very best in his brilliant article, Dominance and Submission. The reason why men should not follow women and women should follow men is that a man will create a woman into something that he grows to love. A woman will turn a man into something that she grows to resent and hate. So you can't take your cues from women. You just can't do it.
That's
domesticate you. Listen, Brett Wayne in the chat. They want to domesticate you. Thank you. I'm really not that smart, guys.
Yeah. But, let's go real quick with Ryan, and then we'll start taking calls.
Okay. Yeah, luckily, it'll be quick. You guys covered almost everything. I can't add much to it except for some strategy. So, and side story, I've actually met this plow horse. It's not a good military theme because it's hard to orbit somebody for more than 3 years when you're being posted. So. He was in San Francisco, and I noticed his woman, she took pride in kind of talking about how shitty she treated him. It's almost like the female version of that, the handshake scene from Predator. Carl Schwarzenegger doing the high five thing. Yeah, it was like that. So the strategy, it's an economic one. I borrowed it from my shipwife. I'm going to call him Chad here because he essentially is. He says, when you have to deviate from and you want to be unpredictable, it's from baseball, you just have to change up about 25% when you're doing something. So for these domestication things, this 1,000 cuts, and it's consentified in that, can you get me a glass of water? That's kind of the first step. She has legs, she can get her glass of water. So the strategy around this is 25% of the time, be irrationally stubborn, make a mountain out of a molehill. And it establishes that they can't take you for granted, because that's all this really is they're just treating you like something that they can have fetch, like some little displays of power. Get me a glass of water, rub my feet. Like she'll do it in front of her friends too, just to show off to them. So all you really need to do is, and if you're from pickup, you'll remember this from the 2/3 rule for texting. Like Rich, I'm sure you, actually, I don't know if you text. I think you pretty much face to face. You talk very old school about your game. But yeah, just 25% of the time, pick something, be stubborn about it, stand your ground, be willing to take the loss over it. And I think you'll see that domestication decline goes a lot slower, if not the other direction.
Yeah, and women are vehemently opposed to this. It's nuts. I mean, if you look at the most popular video on my channel, it's around 1 million views now. One of the shit tests that I put in there is say no to her and watch how she responds. And overwhelmingly in the comments, there's like 4,000 comments now. You'll see women shame me in that video. It's nuts. Like there's so much data in there, it just drives me bonkers. But let's start taking calls, Donovan.
Okay. Yeah, let's go ahead and go to the phone lines. 914-205-5356 is the number to call. First up is Daniel in Virginia. You're on live with the Red Man Group. What is your question?
Hey, what's up, guys? So I have a question. I wonder if any one of you guys have been in a similar situation. So I'm 53 years old. I'm a graduate student, and I work full time. And I hit the gym 10 hours, so I'm basically very busy, like 60 hours to 70 hours a week. And I just don't have time to go out and to meet women. I had many different relationships, and for the next year, I will be gone overseas for a contract where I will not have any access to women because it's going to be with the military. So I was wondering if you ever guys been in similar situations where you are busy 60 to 70 hours a week, just working on your education, business, work, making money. What do you do? Have you guys ever been in a similar situation? Like, what is the best way do you guys think? I appreciate if you guys share your experience with me, and appreciate it. Wish you guys the best, and I appreciate what you guys doing. Thanks so much. Take care.
Thanks for the call, Daniel. Yeah, I'll go first. This one's simple. Alan Roger Curry often refers to the mode 1 approach, and the mode 1 approach is literally making your intentions known with a woman within the first 30 seconds. Now, a lot of guys kind of downplay this stuff because they say, ARC's time has passed. Well, that may or may not be true, but here's the thing. For guys like Daniel, who don't have a lot of time to strike up conversation and build and escalate with a woman physically, mentally, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, this is where the mode 1 approach works. Also, I think Tinder game works very well. Open up a Tinder account, and wherever you, dude, girls are passing out pussy like it's Halloween candy, wherever, whenever. So that would, I mean, I've never been in that particular situation before, but that would be my remedial advice.
Yeah, I do a lot of this traveling for work, so it's what Donovan says is smart. Get Tinder, get the gold thing. That way you can set your location forward to whatever location you're going to be in. Like right now, I'm swiping in the city that I'm going to be in a week from now. And it's just a way to start up a pipeline early. And then once you're there, you're just going to have to hardcore screen for yes girls. You don't have time to build. Ideally, if you're in a city for 3 days, you can't do like a normal date type 2-date thing. You just have to go quickly. So the instant date that I think Krauser talks about a lot, that works if you're doing day game, and just bounce them first coffee place, then bounce them to a place that serves alcohol, then find some excuse to take them back to your place. I think Goldman uses champagne a lot and having a nightcap. But just set up like a strategy for what you're going to be doing. So you have a tight ship set up, and you're just going to have to hope that you're meeting yes girls. Because I've been in cities with 500,000 and been in a totally target dead environment because it was a public Catholic holiday, and girls are, well, for some reason, thinking about Jesus dying is just not something that gets girls going.
Mm-hmm. I was just going to say, there's an aspect of the game that you need to accept if you are really that busy, and if you really realize that you're not going to have much of a social life, but you still want to have a social life. That's just something you're going to have to accept, because I've got guys right now who, they're fresh out of a divorce, and they're in the sexual marketplace, and they're realizing that they don't have any social skills or a skill, but they don't have any social circles that they can really run in. And so they opt for Tinder, or they opt for Match.com just to sort of get themselves started, because they want to do that. But I think that really accepting the new nature of the game that you're in is very, very important. So just, I hate to say limit your expectations, but understand what your expectations are going to be if you are in fact really that busy. And then always be open to like what Carl was saying, like those Insta dates, like seeing opportunities when you are out, or when you do have just a little brief amount of free time. I love that game, by the way, that Goldman was saying about the champagne bottle that he has at his house. He keeps like kind of like a half full champagne bottle, saying, "Oh, I got some champagne from my uncle's wedding. You want to come back and finish it off with me?" That is like freaking brilliant right there. But what it is having those presets, so that once you run into somebody, you're already prepared. I always tell guys, that guys say, "Well, if I ask this girl out, how can I get her to go out with me?" And they're always focused on how to get the girl, but they don't have anything prepared once they do. And, they don't prepare for success. They always prepare for failure. So always prepare for success.
Got another caller, Donovan?
Yes, sir. 914-205-5356 is the number to call. Next is TJ in Wisconsin. TJ, you're on live at the Red Man Group. What's your question?
Hey, thanks for taking my call. This is just a real quick question. I'm curious whether you guys think as to, is alpha and beta more genetic or is it more nurture? I've always thought it's a bit more on the nurture side, but I'm curious what you guys think.
Ooh, nature versus nurture on the alpha. I think we kick this to Rollo.
Ooh, okay. I think it's both. I think that men or boys tend to be born with a more alpha nature, and it takes us kind of crushing it out of them through the village to turn them into a beta. I think boys are naturally more rambunctious. Boys are naturally more risk taking. If you ever raised a child or a nephew or been even a mentor or something like that, you'll know that there's a big difference between boys and girls when they are younger. I think most boys have an alpha nature, to them, and that doesn't necessarily have to mean that they all want to go play football or they all want to shoot guns or they all want to throw rocks. It doesn't. That alphaness can manifest in other ways. But we kind of crush that out of them, and so once they get to be about 5 years old, we start getting them involved in this sort of indoctrination or this molding them into the female supplicating beta that we talk about. Once they get to be about 30, then suddenly they're like I said, the pit crew that we want them to be. So I think that there is definitely a biological aspect to that, but there is also a sociological aspect to that, because a lot of guys say, alpha is strictly nature. If you weren't born alpha, then you're fucked. No, not necessarily. And then I also get this a lot. You're a natural. There's a myth of the natural. There's this idea that you're just born the way you are, and naturally, if you're born a little bit better looking, you're a little more predisposed to muscularity. You take care of yourself, and you're rewarded. You're still being rewarded. It might be for your biological aspects, but you guys that get in that situation are still learning. So the guy who you think is an alpha just got an earlier start than you do. Okay. So, and he got an earlier start because probably he was better looking, or probably because he's got, more muscularity, or he's got a different kind of personality. And there's a lot of aspects that go into making a guy alpha or making the guy, making a guy beta. I definitely, here's the real question is, can you turn a guy into a beta through teaching him and, force fitting him into that beta role? Nobody questions that. Nobody says, "Oh yeah, of course you can," because we look at all these guys, look at all these millennials, look at all these dudes with the man buns, look at all these guys, right now. And were they all born that way? No, they were created to be those. And so we never ask that question. We never say, "Well, can you create a beta?" We say, "Can you create an alpha?" Because that's contentious. Because what we were talking about before, when Carl was showing us those statistics, most guys, Pareto principle, are going to be betas. They're going to be falling into that, the idea that their sexual market value is lower than it actually is. And so when you have an entire social structure built around that to turn that guy into that useful plow horse, to turn that guy into the pit crew, we don't question that. We just say, yeah, of course you can be changed into a beta, but we don't see the opposite. And the opposite is true as well, is that you can be a learned alpha as well as a natural alpha.
Ryan?
Yeah, it's nurture. I don't care if it's nature, it's nurture. I've seen this argument never works. You see those incels that use the term looks max.
Yeah.
Oh, here, funny one too. So somebody took my Instagram photos and they added them to some incel brain cell subreddit, and they asked you, and they pretended to be me, and they asked what I look like, and the guys were talking about adding some jaw enhancement surgery and all this weird crap. Like there's no good mindset that comes from thinking of being attractive as a genetic lottery. Like you can't genetically predispose somebody to a gym membership, a hard edge, or some drive. And on top of that, Carl was talking earlier. Remember that replication crisis? Carl, was it 40%?
In psychology, yeah.
Yeah, so 40% of the social sciences can't be replicated, or 40% can. Either way, it's less than half. So do you really want some egghead who are about as good as the weatherman when it comes to predicting the future to let you know what your limits are in life? Like, come on, man. Yeah, no, it's nurture.
All right, Carl.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Ryan. I think it's mostly learned. Like you have some guys to get an edge because of they're born good looking, they're predisposed to muscularity, like Rolo talked about. But I can make anyone alpha in about 10 to 12 days. What it means is it's something I call the CTWC method. And I haven't told anyone about it, but it's essentially I put you on massive doses of tren. Then I give you a ton of cocaine. I give you 4 shots of whiskey. I give you a Cialis, and I drop you in the middle of Vegas.
Dude, alpha, dude, you can do that in 6 days with all of that. God damn.
You just need to get the testosterone up to about 1,400 and get the 2 lines of coke, and most guys are alpha. So it's just a matter of most guys are very good at stepping at their own dick. And I had this conversation in the chat a moment ago with the main difference between an alpha and a beta on the big 5-factor score is that the beta is neurotic, the alpha isn't. The beta is agreeable, the alpha is disagreeable. Right. Now, extroversion, introversion can go both ways, but what you see is that the dark triad traits that overwhelmingly correlate with notch count are being disagreeable and being narcissistic. So if you're an arrogant, disagreeable bastard, you're probably getting laid a lot, and you probably have to duck swings on occasion too.
Yeah.
People hate that terminology too, and I'll tell you why. Because I get this all the time from like critics on Twitter. They'll say, "I can't believe you're unironically using the terms alpha and beta."
Oh, I saw that. That was hilarious.
Yeah, and I'm like, well, that's because you're too stupid to understand that we're using these terms as abstracts. We're not saying, "Oh, we're all silverback gorillas," or we're all, or what was it? Adam ruins everything. He's got this thing about, oh yeah, there's no such thing as an alpha male. Well, there's no such thing as an alpha male from the etymological perspective that you're casting this in. And it's like, no, guys in the red pill don't go, oh, we're all wolves. Or we're making this comparison to like the natural sciences or something like that. No, they're placeholder fucking terms. Get that through your goddamn head, because that is we're using that to
clustering of behaviors.
We're using that as descriptive terms to define bigger dynamics and to define and to observe bigger phenomenon. And you need those terms. And as soon as people want to erase those terms, or they want to redefine those, because if they can do that, they can just like go back to sleep again and not have to. Well, there's no such thing as alpha, so I'm going to sleep. Fuck that. No, they are abstracts. Get that through your head.
Donovan, you wanted to finish up on that before we take the next call?
Yeah, quickly. I'm going to say both. I think it's nature and I think it's nurture. And I use myself as an example. I've always been a good-looking guy. Like when I was I think I weighed 150 pounds my freshman year in college. I literally gained 25 pounds of muscle the first semester of my freshman year. I was ripped. I was an Adonis. Guess what? I was still a raging fucking beta. I think it's lazy for men to say, well, if you just lift and you have money, you're an alpha. No. Being an alpha, and here's the thing, are we alpha males? I don't know. Am I an alpha? I don't know. Like, I'm not going to say, well, in case you haven't noticed, I happen to be an alpha male. No, man. Like, I'm a guy who happens to be in above average shape. I have above average looks, and I know more about women than most men, right? Like, this is just how it is. If that makes me an alpha, okay, so be it. I'm not into labels, but alpha behavior, that's got to be learned, man. And just like Rollo said, some guys are born with a head start. If they're born good looking and they've got an alpha male as a father, then yeah, that's why people might think that they're naturals. But alpha behavior still has to be learned. It is absolutely nurture. Guys raised by single mothers are not alpha males. Yeah, they shoot niggas up and they go to prison and they become professional athletes. Still not alpha males, man. You still got these niggas out here talking about, man, without my single mom, man, I wouldn't be. No. It's the nigga who knocked. Oh, okay, my bad. It's the dude who knocked up your single mom who had all those genetics and then he was off fucking other bitches. That's why you're in the NBA, right? Your mom had you at 14, 15 years old when her body was young and nubile. That's why your ass is in the NBA. So again, alpha behavior has to be learned. And you want to know something? You got to walk through the fire. A rite of passage is pain at the hands of a woman, man.
Yeah. Let me just add to that before you take the next call, because I was thinking about this timeline. We're all born in alpha, up until about the age 3, 4, 5, as it's been previously pointed out. You're naturally alpha. You want to see an alpha kid, go to the schoolyard or preschool and watch a 4-year-old just behave. Just watch it. And then through the indoctrination school, the school system, through TV, media, Disney, and all that sort of stuff, we unlearn that alpha behavior, and then we need to relearn it. And that's just the truth of the world. It is what it is.
Right.
Next caller.
All right, so we are going to go to the next caller. 914-205-5356 is the number to call if you want to get on the show. Got a guy from Florida. He said his name to me about 100 times, but I'm deaf as a post sometimes when you guys are talking at the same time. So please give us your first name.
Sport.
Sport. Oh, that's what I thought.
Good name.
But okay, all right, we got Sport in Florida. You're on live with the Redman Group. Go ahead, brother.
What's up, man? My question had a couple of parts to it. First, I was just curious if any of you guys ride motorcycles or consider yourselves bikers.
I did at one point, yeah.
So say again?
I did at one point. I rode sport bikes for about 15 years, and then my friend started dying, so I moved to convertibles.
There you go.
That makes sense. I've heard that from some people, but yeah, I'm actually kind of new to, red pill thinking and all that, so I'm not familiar with all the guests, but I actually, forgive me, Sandman pretty regularly, but I really think that before I even discovered all of this stuff, I was riding motorcycles, and I just saw that basically through riding a motorcycle and maybe just, discovering some brotherhood and this and that, and then I knew that red pill thinking was out there, but I just I hadn't discovered it yet. And so basically, the second part of my question is just, being a biker and how that could help you obviously have a lot more broads at your doorstep, and the idea that if you survive riding a motorcycle every day and, the dangers that come with that, you basically almost naturally become an alpha, or at least you just give a damn a lot less about the bullshit going on in the world, and you just love your life a lot more.
Yeah, well, it's not just the bikes. It's because you're hanging out with a group of like 20 guys who are riding and have a common mission.
Yeah, let me just start with that, because I did spend a lot of time around guys. We did a lot of racing, track racing, drag strip racing, shenanigans in the middle of the night till 3 o'clock in the morning, like illegal drag strip, racing in the streets where cops would chase you down. And I tend to agree with what he's saying, but I was still plugged in, so I was not effective as a guy at that time, even though you kind of tune back in your more natural alpha state riding bikes. I kind of likened it at the time to, it's that whole Bon Jovi, like on a steel horse I ride sort of thing. Except for we did it on these Japanese crotch rockets and bikes. And these guys were alpha as fuck. They just didn't care. Speed Demon was like, it's like gasoline was like this like charge. Like I remember I got pulled over once doing about 250 kilometers an hour on the highway at 3 o'clock in the morning by a cop, and the guy let me off. And I think it was because of the approach that I took to him when he came up to me and we had the conversation. I just had that, like, I don't know, you just have that vibe, that like juice coming off, and he's like, yeah, okay, fine, go home, you're not going to kill anybody, sort of thing. But I tend to agree with that. But another point that I want to make before I kind of pass it off to the rest of the panel is, at one point I had my first office on the second floor of a building, and on the main floor there was a psychotherapist or a clinical psychologist or something. And I remember looking at the parking lot all day long, because I'm a car guy, and I'd watch what cars would pull in that would come in for treatment, and I never saw a motorcycle pull in. A motorcycle, gentlemen, is man's natural treatment or therapy in the world. I want to pass it off to anybody else that wants to chime in.
I'll just go then. Yes, I have a motorcycle. I have a quad. I have a snowmobile. That's kind of my thing. Is I like power sports, but I don't have a Harley. I don't have a street bike. I don't have a crotch rocket. I do when I'm out on my bike, or I'm out on my quad, or I'm out on my sled. It's all about me. It's just like I go out there, and in some cases I'll go out with other guys, and there's that, that camaraderie type thing. But sometimes it's just me going out there by myself and doing my own thing. And that's really, there's this concept. I think Carl will know what it's called. It's was it peak experiences? I think it's Maslow was the one who came up with peak experiences. But that's where I have my peak experiences, when I'm out there on my bike or on my sled or wherever and doing that. But I do understand what Rich is saying as well, because as Rich knows, my brother reconditions old muscle cars. And so he's kind of in that. When we used to, back in my younger days, he used to be into bracket racing. And so I was always hanging out with him. I was always in that, musicians kind of circle with the tough guys and everything else. But it was really more of, it's more of a tribe, really. And I think that is maybe that's the key element here, is like you trying to find your tribe. And you can find a tribe pretty much in any kind of, and any kind of endeavor or any kind of thing. You can make we're naturally tribalistic as humans. And that's one of the bigger problems that I have with like, say, a guy like Jordan Peterson, who thinks it's all about the individual. No, we are evolved to be tribal beings. And so when you take that away from us, what do we hunger for? We hunger for that brotherhood. Like, whenever I was in a band, the guys in that band became like family to me.
Right.
And that's one of the reasons I really liked doing, or like being in a band and playing music. I mean, I love music, of course, but like I liked that camaraderie and that tribal instinct was satisfied in that. The same thing can be said for guys who are, into motorcycles, or like entrepreneurs and cars, or even you can go down to, the nerdy hobbies. You can get into like gaming and, games and stuff like that. There's still a tribe of guys there. And I think that's kind of interesting, because we tend to think of like nerds as just being, big betas, but even nerds will form tribes where they kind of interconnect with each other, because they're all, men are men, women talk, men do, and men doing form tribes.
Yeah, and if you've never experienced it, World of Warcraft, geeky guys playing video games, like that's a tribe. Like that is a camaraderie of men. There's millions of guys that do that,
yes,
that create that tribal bond. I mean, I was talking to Aaron Cleary about this at one point, and I really think that as a rite of passage for all men, at some point a guy needs to own a motorcycle in their lifetime.
Yeah, Jack Donovan is really big on tribalism, and I think a lot of people think that means, like white nationalism or white supremacy or something like that.
No, not even close.
He's very, very tribal, but he's not. He doesn't qualify that. It's just like he accepts the fact that men need to form bonds, that we need to, be tribal, because that is part of our evolved mental firmware. And I think women are tribal as well. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I always call it the sisterhood uber alles, because they're always, doesn't matter if they're separated by, politics or religion or whatever, women are always women, and they always will lock arms. And if it's an attack on women will band together and defend against womankind.
Right.
Donovan?
Yeah. I used to street race back when I was 19. I think I was involved in 3 different street races. The third one, I got caught. And I'll never forget, I'm in front of the judge. And at this point, I was going to High Point University. And she says to me, she's a black woman. She says, "I have no idea why someone like you would get caught up in something like this." I didn't have anything to say. So she says, I'm going to do something for you that no one ever did for me. I'm going to give you a second chance. And then she says, "Mr. Sharp, if I see you in my courtroom again, bring your toothbrush." And I never got involved in a street race again. But I agree with you that kind of brotherhood is very important. And I mean, I don't know, I don't have any stories like a band or anything that you've been involved in, Richard. But when I was in Vegas, I owned a 2012 Audi A5. Dude, the car was sharp as shit. I actually sold it before I came out here. Anytime I was in my car, you couldn't tell me nothing, man. It's when you're on a motorcycle, when you're in your Audi, I think you've got an Audi R8 or something like that. The Iron.
Yeah, I got an R8 and an S5. Yeah.
Yeah, right, exactly. So yeah. But when you're in your car, man, like when you're in your element, it's almost like you
change.
Yeah, you change. Like you become another person, man. Like the air is sweeter. You have more confidence with girls, and it's not really liquid courage, so to speak. Like if you take a shot of whiskey and cocaine,
your balls grow; they end up tingling.
Yeah, man, it's palpable, man. Like when you pull up to a club, man, and you get out of your Audi, right, and you toss your keys to the valet, dude, you're getting pussy that night, man.
Carl?
Yeah, I'm not much of a car or motorcycle. I'm more into weaponry these days, but I did steal a Honda CBR 600 once just for fun. And I will admit that when you hit about 100 miles per hour on one of those crotch rockets, you do literally feel like you're flying. And
Right.
then the
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
no, that was
Oh yeah. So the Harley thing is kind of funny. My stepdad was a big rider. I slept next to the thing for 17 years, and typical promise keeper from Rolo's thing, I kind of rebelled against the family by not riding. I like to think, though, flying a Sea King helicopter or riding in a combat frigate, I kind of get the same idea of that. And yeah, it doesn't make you more of a man. It just amplifies what you're doing currently. Like, I remember telling the story of this guy I used to sail with, the supplies tech. He had his ex-wife and her ex-husband living in his house while he was deployed. And he used to write suicide notes on boxes. So I can imagine there's good feelings in that. And if you're like a stand-up guy and you just want to amplify your masculine traits, then it's great. But if you're kind of that same shitty mentality beta male, then it's gonna depress you more than anything, because you kind of have a taste for it, but you just can't grab it. So yeah, that's my thoughts.
All right. You want to hop on another call?
Yeah.
We've got about 20 minutes left.
All right, good. We got 3 callers in the queue. 914-205-5356 is the number to call. Let's go back to the phone lines here. Jonathan from Modern Life Dating. You are on with the Red Man Group. What's up, brother?
Hey, what's going on? I just wanted to confirm globally what Rolo said about, the masculine instinct in boys, because I'm out here in Tokyo, and these the boys in the education system here. I teach elementary school students, so I start as early as 3 years old.
Oh wow!
And you can see which boys have that natural aggressive masculinity in them. And I can definitely say that society is engineered to kind of fag boys up, make them weaker, more supplicating.
Yeah, pussify them is what I call it.
It's yeah, 150%. And Japan does it too, but Japan doesn't do it as bad. And as a teacher, the way that the education system is set up, it's flawed to nurture men, and it's more catered to nurture women, because the girls, all my girl students are little angels. They sit down, they want to listen to sensei, they want to be told what to do. The boys, they tell me, why are you here, you foreigner? And they're like, and they tell me, they call me gaijin, and they say, we don't have to listen to you. Some of them, they're rebellious, and like Carl said, they're not agreeable. So I just want to say, it seems to me like that there is definitely some kind of systemization to, in my opinion, to fag guys up. And look at what happened to America now, because you put all the women in control. You say women's rights, women raise men better, and look at how things are in America now. It is an absolute fucking disaster for both sexes. So I just wanted to chime in on that and confirm that, on a global scale, I mean, Rich is in Toronto, Rolo's in Nevada, and then, I'm over here in Tokyo, but it's all the same truth all over the world.
Hey, Jonathan, one thing real quick. It's Nevada, not
Nevada.
Yeah, let's go. Thanks for hey, listen.
Nevada, sorry.
That's all right. We're just being dicks.
And it's Tirana.
Tirana. Oh, wow. Listen, we're going to get in touch with you about getting you on the show, Jonathan.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Just to go real quick, I did a pretty in-depth video. It was about 40 minutes long on my channel. I think if you search why men are so pussified or so feminized, you'll find it. But kind of talking about what he was getting into. I go into some real deep points with it. But if nobody else has something to add, let's hop on in the next call.
Okay. 914-205-5356 is the number to call. Let's go to Andrew in Texas. You're on live at the Red Man Group. What's your question?
Hey guys, this is for Rolo. I'm taking you up on something you said last week. You said that if a man should be non-exclusive with girls till he's at least 30, and to call in if we have a problem.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not that I disagree, but I do take exception, because as a Christian, I don't feel morally permitted to have sex outside of marriage, and I say that almost regretfully, because I'm 22 and I know that I can and have been able to get girls, and so my problem is, though, if I do follow that conviction, and I'm following your advice to wait to be exclusive till around 30, how am I any different from the betas in waiting that you talk about?
Well, first of all, you're red pill aware, so that's how you're different from the betas in waiting, because most of those guys are just simply ignorant of the fact that, or the role that they're playing in all of that. I get this question quite a lot, actually, because I'm writing the 4th book on religion and the red pill, and a good portion of that is about Christianity. In fact, I would not be averse to doing a show that's based on the religious aspects of the red pill. But where does that put you? If you, honest to God, feel that you are going to live by your convictions and you're not going to have sex until you're married, the first thing is, and you sound to me like maybe you know what you're talking about, and you sound to me like you've got some shit going for you, and so I don't think it's so much about like, am I going to be a beta if I wait till I'm 30? It's I want to have sex now. Okay. I mean, when you're 22 years old and you're looking at another 8 years before you can, have sex, if you're going to do it by, the right way. Then, so you're looking at another 8 years before you can actually have sex. And I think that's really the operative here. So how are you not a beta? Well, you're listening to this. You've read my books. I'm not saying that that's a cure-all, but it's my opinion that a lot of the modern church today, and I don't know what branch of Christianity you subscribe to, but in my opinion, a lot of the churches nowadays are becoming more and more feminized, and they're becoming more assimilated by the feminine imperative. And as a result of that, just exactly what John from Modern Life Dating was just saying is churches tend to be what I call beta farms. And so the guys who are in there if you're raised in church culture and you're raised in that kind of acculturation, that socialization, it's going to train you to be more of a beta, to be more useful, to be that, like I was talking about before, to be that pit crew for a woman. And so guys they struggle with that because they say, well, I need to put myself first, but my religious says I need to put others first. I need to, Rollo saying, wait until you're 30 before you even get into monogamy. The reason I say that is because I encourage guys to spin plates and to get more life experience and to experience more, women on whole. And so sometimes that means playing the field. Sometimes that means spinning plates. And people think that when I talk about spinning plates, it's always about, oh, you got to fuck a lot of women. No, I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying is you need to adopt a mindset of non-exclusivity. So that means if you say, hey, sex is off the table, I would still expect you to date like 3 or 4 different women at the same time and say, okay, I like this one, or I like something about this one. And really it's sort of this, it's this education in women, so that when you get to the point where you're ready to settle down, or you find a woman, at least you can say, hey, I have had experience with other women, and I know what I like, and I know what I don't like, and I'm not being force fit into this religious mold because I'm supposed to take the first girl that says she loves me, right? So there's that aspect of it there. So I mean, as far as being beta, or waiting to get to, like, say 30, the reason I say that is not necessarily because of a religious conviction. I say that because it takes time for men to build themselves up, to acquire first of all, the skills, the judgment of character, putting themselves together financially, educationally. It takes longer for a man to mature into having the kind of value that a woman is looking for in a long-term partner. Okay. There's also the other aspect of hypergamy, which is arousal. So you still have to be good looking. You still have to go to the gym. You still have to, be athletic, or you still have to, take care of yourself on top of all of that. So there's a lot of prerequisites for a man. And so for a guy to say, well, I'm going to do all this stuff and I'm going to build myself up and I'm going to have all this great equity, but she's still hypergamous and she's still going to be looking for, the bigger and the better deal all the time. That's not a straitjacket, and it's particularly not a straitjacket when it comes to Christianity right now, or religion. I shouldn't just pick on Christianity, but on religion, because women, I would assume, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, I would assume that the plans you have for your future is to marry a woman of the same religion as you, or is that what you want to do, or is that just is he off the? That's okay. Well, anyways, I was just going to say is that it takes longer for guys to get to mature. And I think that if you find yourself in a religious context and you are red pill, and I'm going to go into real depth here with this in the fourth book. But I would say that it is even more vitally necessary for a guy to be red pill aware and to be game savvy, if that is the choices if that's the religious choice that they're going to make for themselves. MGTOWs are going to run me up the flagpole for this, but if you plan on getting married, if that is the only option for you to consider, you need to have as much education and have as much red pill awareness and game savvy that you can possibly get, because it is more important, because you're basing you're putting all of your eggs in one basket. It's not like, oh, I'm going to go check out this girl for a little while, the LTR here. It's even like guys who are branch swingers, who are like serial monogamists. They are going to have more experience than you are, because you are going to limit your sexual experience to one woman if you're planning to stick to your convictions. So if that's the case, you have far less risk tolerance than anybody else. So you need to know this stuff, and you need to read my books, but you need to also have a really solid understanding of the nature of women. And that is, not just from a religious perspective, but also from a practical perspective, like say the stuff that Carl puts out, or understanding the evolved nature of men and women. And if that is going to be your starting point, you need to invest yourself as much as possible into this, so that you're making a wise, educated decision when it comes time for you to decide that this is the person that I want to marry.
Donovan?
Yeah, this is, I'm going to go real quick. Had some people in here steal my thunder. Henry in the chat says he's using this as an excuse to be a beta. I totally agree, man. And it's interesting. Like, men in religion, males in religion, they seem more interested in saving themselves before marriage than actual women in religion do, right? Like, the men are always like, oh, I want to save myself for my wife, and but the women are like, the hell with this. I mean, listen, even Jesus had to get laid, right? I'm going to be a Mary Magdalene, and I'm going to go out and get dick like every other woman is out here. Then when I hit the wall, when I'm 30 years old, now I'm going to claim that I found Jesus again. Here's the thing, dude. Like, I understand you think you have virtuous intentions, but I think what you're expecting is that because you refrain from sleeping around until you get married, you assume that the woman that you married in the same religion is going to do the same thing. And I'm here to tell you, brother, nothing could be further from the truth. Sharp Assist also said something extremely profound. Sex before marriage, not having sex before marriage is a rule for women, not for men. So as far as religion is concerned, dude, you need to throw that out the door. Listen, man, I don't mind you quoting Ezekiel 2:14 and John 3. Listen, that's all well and good. I'm not going to say I'm not religious. I'm not going to say that I am, because I'm in a bit of a transitional period in my life. But just like Rolo said, dude, religion, especially Christianity, that is a beta factory. And women only abide by, like feminism, women only abide by religion when it suits their needs, right? But when hypergamy takes, like, dude, you want to know who gets laid the most in a church? Is the pastor. The pastor's fucking everybody's wives. Why? Because he's the pastor. He's the guy in charge, right? All the girls in the youth group, and we've all been a part of youth groups, right? The girls in their youth groups are fucking everybody, and they're always fucking the youth group leader, the 25-year-old guy who's just out of college and he's on fire for God. He's fucking all those 15 and 16 years old in the audience, and I fucking seen it. Dude, listen, enough with this I don't want to have sex before marriage nonsense. Just because you abide by that does not mean that women are too.
All right, so let's do a history lesson first. We've been on this earth for like 6 million years, and it's only the last couple of thousand years that we've invented this Disney story called religion, and the rule book that kind of toes in line with that. So if you want to go against your evolutionary and biological programming, I'm not going to argue it. I don't usually get into political and religious debates. That's just me. The second thing is just an observation, but in my experience and in the conversations I've had with hundreds of guys now on coaching consults, some of the most promiscuous women are those that claim to be highly religious or Catholic, that in their 20s, they're on the CC. And you guys know what that is. I don't need to expand on that. I'm going to pass it off. I think Carl wants to go next.
Well, I have two things I want to go through. I think partly I think the whole stay a virgin until marriage thing, I think it's a buffer for guys because it's something that keeps them from having to actually get out there. And I also think it's kind of a shit test for men. in the religion. It's added in there to see what kind of beta guys will actually go through with it. And one of the funnier things I read was that a lot of the evangelical, really Christian girls are now having anal sex now, because apparently there's no specific commandment against anal sex in the Bible, just oral sex and vaginal sex. So apparently if you fuck a girl in the ass, Jesus doesn't see it. And a second thing I wanted to say, and it's unrelated to the present caller, I just wanted to say that Ryan, for a French Canadian who was in the Navy for years, that was an incredibly masculine shirt choice.
I'm just going to add one more thing here. It's like I completely understand what you're saying, but I have had guys who were religious dudes who did exactly what this guy did. They waited till marriage. They thought that, you know, God smiled from heaven above and gave them their wives. And these guys hit me up when they get to be about like 29 years old. And they would ask me like, you know, what's it like to have sex with other women? You know, they're always wondering about what, you know, even one of the reasons I think that Christian guys tend to be more quote unquote addicted to porn is because they wonder what they're missing. They wonder, well, am I getting, you know, her sexual best? And I'll tell you right now, you probably not, because it's already being mitigated by your religious convictions. I think that there's two kinds of guys. The guy who actually successfully, you know, saves himself for marriage, and I think Donovan really kind of hit on this, is like more guys are in this day and age are more invested in that conviction than women are, because women are going to want to lock down the best alpha they can. Hypergamy is always going to trump religious convictions.
Right.
That's just the simple, you know, nuts and bolts of that. Can women control that? Yes. Will women control that? No. We're saying we're expecting women to police their hypergamous natures in the same way that we expect men to police their own sexual natures. And I think that is kind of an unrealistic thing to think about. But I will say this, I do understand why you would want that, why you would want a woman to save herself for marriage, and maybe why a guy would want to as well. Because because I've had sex with 2 virgins in my sexual past, and in each one of those cases, those women became very hyper attached to me right after that, because I was their first one. I'm the first guy she ever had sex with, and that I've now set the benchmark for every other guy that's going to have sex with her later on. And I can understand, this is also scientifically proven, is that women who have more sex partners than not tend to be less able to, you know, have strong attachments to their long-term partner. The reason for that is because if you've got a woman that's got like 3 partners and you've got a woman that's got 10 partners, the woman with 10 partners has more of a chance within those 10 men to have established a very strong alpha link. And so therefore she becomes an alpha widow. Whereas a girl who's got like 2 or 3 and you come along and you're the most alpha guy that she's ever had sex with, the idea that you're going to be the one that she's going to fixate on as her highest, you know, remember, hypergamy doesn't seek its own level. It seeks the bigger and better deals. If you're that bigger and better deal than those 3 guys that were ahead of you, that's better than having 10 guys ahead of you and having the possibility of her fixating on that one guy and pining for that one guy and becoming what I call an alpha widow. So in a sense, I do understand why, you know, no sex before marriage makes a sense. I mean, because if you look at the Muslim religion, that's very serious for them. If you're going to consider a woman for marriage, I mean, that's why they have like 4 or 5, four. I think they can max out at 4 wives right now. The reason for that is because they know that the sexual nature they accept in that religion the sexual nature of the guy. But they also, I think, maybe fundamentally, rudimentarily, they understand how hypergamy works for women, and they understand that it is up to the man to police hypergamy for the woman.
Yeah. Just on the final note, there was a lot of research done on this number of sex partners and successful marriages. And again, the women that you marry that have like 30 sex partners versus 3, and also the younger they were when they lost their virginity, plays a huge role in how successful that marriage is going to be or how long it's going to last. But on that truth bomb, we got to wrap up today's broadcast. We're coming on the 2-hour mark. I want to thank everybody that's called in, contributed, participated in the chat, especially the panelists. Again, Carl, Black Label Logic, Donovan from the Sharp Reality, Ryan from Married Red Pill, and of course Rollo Tomasi from The Rational Male. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel. You hit the notification bell if you don't want to miss the events when they're posted. We'll be doing another live broadcast next Saturday, same time, same place. We'll see you guys there.
Cool.
Peace.
Later.